How you guys doing? Solomon Thompson here from Shutter Lifestyle Media. And today I'm just going to talk to you about, is photography dead as a business? And for me, I would say, yeah, I think so. Do I still love taking photos? Absolutely. And I think that that's why making it a business becomes something that is really not feasible for most people. You're not going to make a ton of money, and that's okay, but that means you have to manage it really, really well. Business is going to be tough, and that's okay, but you have to be willing to put in the work and put in the hours with a difficult way of finding reward. So for me, I'm dialing back from trying to pursue it. I did well last year, and financially, I think from it being a side hustle, a small side business, and I think I can repeat that going forward and even add to it by doing some different things. But I also find that I'm falling less in love, or I should say, I'm spending less time on the parts that I love and more parts on the time that I don't love. So that's kind of why I want to share this video with you all, is to say, sit back and think about what you enjoy about carrying this around with you. For me, it's about, capturing somebody in a great moment and sharing that with them and seeing their eyes light up, the smile that comes on their face, that kind of mouth drop, and, have them turn to a friend and show a friend that photo, and then me getting their information, sharing their information, my information with them, picking them up as a follower, and then, making an online gallery and giving that to them. That's almost always free. Every once in a while I've had people, pay me in cash for it, or, do something nice for me, like buy me Starbucks or buy something online from my store. And that's awesome when that happens. But most times it's giving it away for free. I'm okay with that because I enjoy taking the photo, and overall, I really want to know that my images are being used. I don't want to get paid to do an event, take tons of photos, and they barely ever get used. So that's definitely what I enjoy about it. Another thing I enjoy about it is editorial work. For me, I like to go to different events. I like to be kind of spontaneous about it. It might be a protest happening down the street. It might be a high school game, football game, might be a college game. And I enjoy going to those events, seeing who else shows up, meeting other photographers, challenging myself to cover the event, because you cannot control, even though you may know the venue, you can't control, all of the aspects of that venue on that given day. You can get used to standing in this one spot, but on that particular day, in that particular game, the university may give out a bunch of passes to a children's organization or a nonprofit or what have you, or business, and they may have 5, 10, 20 people standing in the spot that you normally stand at, which is your favorite position. So, I mean, all kinds of different things can happen to throw it off, but I love, sort of showing up during the day, that day, and just seeing what's there to offer, what's the lighting look like, what's the crowd like, what's taking place, and then shooting that event. And I don't like to be tied to one company or one organization. I mean, I do shoot for one, and I think that that's important to help get access, because sometimes just having a small business, it might be difficult getting access on your own. But I like shooting for myself. I like shooting for my own business, because in that way I can focus on what I want to focus on, and I'm under my timeline. And if I fail the shoot, I fail the editorial shoot, then that's okay, right? Like, I can just literally, and I've done that before, where I've literally come back, looked at a bunch of photos, and been like, I'm deleting 300 of these photos because none of them came out the way that I thought. For whatever reason, I got way too involved in what was going on around me. I set a setting for a particular shot, went and moved back to, covering the football game, forgot to dial down my settings, the EVF, or, the screen, made me think that everything was coming out perfect. And when I got back, I had that slight motion blur, on every single image. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So, for me, that happens. And that's a lot better thing to happen when you are shooting for yourself, shooting spec, and, just wondering, if those photos are even going to sell or not. Another thing I've actually started to enjoy more and more is stock photography. you are not going to make a ton of money in stock photography. You're barely going to make anything most of the time, but you do get those key surprises now and then that just kind of make you think, oh, okay, this could work. The other day I was literally talking to my wife about stock photography and how little I make and how much time I'm spending on it. And no lie, that night I went back, looked at one of my stock accounts, and I had $80 had posted, and that's not a lot, right? But $80 in for one photo of many at an event that you went to that you enjoyed, that's great because now that paid for your gas, your food that day, and you still got to cover an event that you enjoy, and that photo now has a better chance of selling again. So you'll learn that about stock photography is once a photo sells one time, that particular photo, not all the photos tied to that event, but that particular photo is going to have a better chance of selling. Algorithms change on the photo, and also your client is telling you that that photo, for whatever reason, really stood out to them, and that's what they wanted. And if it works for that client, whoever bought that, it's probably going to work for someone else. So you have to focus on what is selling and, sticking with doing something that you enjoy and something that you love because you're going to spend a lot of time in it. You're not going to make a ton of money. As well, in stock photography, my volume of sales has increased, every year. And I've probably been doing stock, I wouldn't say serious, but a little greater than a hobby for about 2 years. And I went from, selling, in the teens or 50, or so in a whole year to now several hundred, so that grows. I think the big key is finding out what sells, finding out where the money can be made if that's your goal, and then focusing on that. And selling stock isn't always about the money, right? I've been able to see where my photos have been used in magazines or my photos have been used on websites in different countries, and that's pretty amazing that someone in Australia is using your photo for their website. So there's a lot to go with that. I don't care that I made 10 cents off of it. I know that my work is sitting up there being used, which demonstrates the quality of the work that I'm doing. So stock is definitely a validation of the quality of the work that you're doing as well. And then I'm now doing some Airbnb things as well. And that's through Airbnb services. And that allows me to book clients through Airbnb for photography shoots. And, those are things like family shoots, might be an individual. You can really set up your listings any way you want. And that's a joy to do. But there's a lot of work there. And one of the challenges that I have with working with a paid client, just a family or just a person, is that shoot, you're going to have a certain skill with the gear that you have, and having the right gear definitely matters, and checking out the location and picking the event time, all those things matter. But at the end of the day, what's going to matter most is how well you connect with your model, and I say model, just meaning if it's a family photo shoot or what have you, it's the same thing, so being able to connect with your model, being able to connect with the family, the person who you're doing that photo shoot for, that matters a lot. And I can't tell you how many times I've had, someone who I connected with great, their photos came out great, their personality really got to shine through. And then I dealt with a family or an individual who didn't know what they really wanted. And their personality and their expectations really changed throughout the shoot. In the course of an hour, a lot can change, and a person's like, now all of a sudden they want the photos that they didn't want, they now want, but the lighting for that photo is gone, right? So, case in point, show up to beach shoot. I recommend a certain beach. They want a different beach. We get there, it's crowded. There's a bunch of stuff on the beach. It's just not ideal. Then they didn't want to be in the water because they didn't want to get wet, and they were worried about all these other things. So we did all these photos around staying away from the water, but near the water. And then towards the end, when the light was going, they want to be in the water. Well, shooting towards the water when the light is gone, and we're already over time, it just didn't work. So I tried to capture a couple images, didn't have the right lighting for it. It just did not come out the way I wanted. And those were the photos that at the end they were most interested in getting back. And I let them know, like, hey, I'm sorry, you're not going to get any of those photos because all of those came out like garbage. And they weren't, complete garbage, but they just weren't the quality that I will give a customer. So I think they were, happy enough. They had already told me that they had bad experience with photographers before, and that was always a red flag. Someone comes up to you and tells you, "Hey, they want to hire you," but their last photographer experience was terrible. Then guess what? It's probably going to be terrible with you too. I mean, maybe you can try and capitalize on some things that they weren't doing correctly, but in all reality, you are probably going to let them down because they don't know what they really want. And I another stitch with that same customer, I had edited a photo. I thought that it was a great photo of them, and actually, it was one of the best photos of them of that whole shoot. And their first thing was, "I think this photo makes me look fat." Well, I mean, yes, I can take some angles, but if I'm shooting with a 70 to 200 2.8 at a distance, and I'm dialed in on you, and I'm shooting in portrait, and I'm standing slightly elevated above you, it's not the camera making you look fat. It's not the posing making you look fat. It just isn't. So again, it's not to be mean or anything like that. It's just that you can't have, some people have an unrealistic expectation of what they're going to look like in a photo. And they imagine, the perfectly posed, Instagram photo where they're using their phone, they've turned, they've got it way up high here, they twist it, turn, and they look skinny, right? Like, if those are the photos that we want to do, we can do those. But again, this isn't your iPhone. This isn't, you know, anyway. So to me, doing things like through Airbnb services or doing, set shoots with families or with individuals, I think there's actually very good money in doing those kinds of things, especially if you can get where you're setting them up through your website, through where you're getting paid through maybe one of the cash apps, or, like a Venmo or Cash App, or, something like that, where you're able to circumvent. And I wouldn't, again, I'm not telling you to book with a company and then circumvent them and get paid. What I'm saying is get your own bookings, drive people to your own website, then set up a means for them to pay you, whether it's PayPal or what have you. And then from there, that's how you're going to get the greatest profit. Because if you're working through, like I work through Airbnb, they take a huge chunk right off the top. So someone's like, well, why are you going to charge me $500 for a 30-minute shoot? Well, first of all, that's what I charge. And that's the value of my time and what I'm going to spend with you. We're always going to go over 30 minutes. I'm going to pre-scope the location days before. I'm going to drive there. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to work with you to get the photos that we need. I'm going to probably stay late. I'm going to drive then somewhere and grab something to eat. I'm then going to go home and work on your first 24-hour photos. And I'm going to have to you 5 or 10 photos within the first 24 hours. And I'm going to edit those right away. I'm also going to upload back up my photos so they don't get lost. Then I'm going to spend the next 48 hours getting all your photos edited. I'm going to create an online gallery for you with unlimited downloads of only you're going to be able to see that. And you're going to have access to that gallery for a year. For that costs you $500 for 30 minutes. But of that $500, you're not taking back $500. Airbnb is going to take right off the top, I think it's like 15%. Then my numbers may be wrong on that, so apologize if they are. Airbnb is going to take their chunk. Then we're going to go over to my website where I'm going to have all the photos where your gallery is. I have a subscription to be able to use that website that way, to be able to run my website that way. I'm going to set it as a gallery that's shareable with you. So that means they don't have to pay and I don't lose money right away. But again, I am paying for a monthly payment. I pay annually, but I'm paying a monthly payment for that. I'm also carrying a insurance policy for all my shoots that covers my gear, covers them, covers me. If we slip and fall, and we both go in the water and all the gear is gone and we get hurt, I still get, insurance company's going to help pay that, right? So that's a monthly cost. So you start adding up all these monthly costs, and then all of a sudden, you start looking at what you're making, not to mention taxes, self-employment tax, state tax, federal taxes. You are going to start losing money pretty quickly.